than like the dude that like handled a thing in this one situation, or like, went through these XYZ files, and like they're sure that like reality's weirder than we realize, and that the government has some handle on it. There's nobody that I think is full Ed Snowden on this.
Yes,
And
we were talking about this before camera. I agree.
Yeah. So I think it's a war between those two sides. I'm definitely on the side of like, again, not knowing ontological truth or whatever, and being on the outside. I'm on the side of like, I don't see any reason. I've been given no reasons outside of like these rumors you hear, guys like Jeremy Corbell or like Ross Coulthart, who are like supposedly in touch with people like in and around the actual program. It's just like they always say, like, we get super deep with these people, and like they all say the same thing at the end of the conversation, which is, if you knew what I know, you wouldn't be pro-disclosure. You hear that over and over again, and so I'm not inclined to dismiss it. Like, I think there's a credulousness to that world sometimes of reporting, but I also think they're doing good work, and like it's important to not throw the baby out with the bathwater and kind of parse the good from the bad. I think some of the stuff that they're bringing out is really good, and then sometimes it's a little indiscriminate at times or whatever. But
your idea, though, that it's like pieces of the government, certain people know certain things about certain topics, and then they don't know about these other 50 topics.
Yeah.
Same thing for this other team over here, but they don't know about this one. You know what I mean? Like there's this compartmentalization that happens, and then maybe there's very few who are actually like individuals, literally, who are like read in on most of it. Therefore, the secret is kept in all these different places where you need all of it together to really make sense of it. And frankly, the same people who are saying, if you knew what I knew, well, they only know one piece out of the 200.
That would be my strong bias, is like you meet some of these people with like, hardcore intel credentials or whatever, and like, I just don't think like they have the epistemic ability. Like, yeah, you might have like a treasure trove of data proving that this stuff is real, like tons of crashes here, and like, this thing was detected here, and whatever. But I think that, and like, the ability to like holistically have like a worldview, like an expanded worldview, like a metaphysical understanding of reality, is like very different. And I think you can be outside the government and have clear intuitions around that. Even that are even greater and more kind of top of the pyramid, so to speak. They're more kind of, there's more consilience and more interdomain knowledge and connections you're making than like the dude that like handled a thing in this one situation, or like, went through these XYZ files, and like they're sure that like reality's weirder than we realize, and that the government has some handle on it. But they don't, I don't think, have like this like clear picture of like what's going on. And that's why, I found it really interesting. There's a story, this guy, Robert Sarbacher, who, was in touch with Wilbert Smith, who is there's written correspondence between the two. Wilbert Smith is this, Canadian engineer, and Sarbacher is this American engineer, and he's this nuclear expert. And he is running the Washington National Labs. He's close with Townsend Brown, who's doing the gravity stuff. And I think he's in on the UFO stuff too. In 1987, he writes to William Steinman, who's this UFO researcher, saying, the rumors around the UFO crashes are essentially true, or substantially true, or whatever. And he says, John von Neumann, Vannevar Bush were involved in these things. Like, he goes on to like, list names. And maybe he was speaking in sort of coded fashion. I think he says fundamentally true or substantially true, and that can sometimes mean you're true on the surface level, but you're wrong on the underlying details or whatever. But I think he was, maybe somewhat, involved in all this stuff. And anyways, he, says he wasn't fully read into the program, but he points people who come to him again in the 80s, like, later in his life, to this guy, Eric Walker, who's an electrical engineer and the president of Penn State. And Eric Walker, according to him, was part of this like MJ-12 lineage or whatever, this like core group of UFO people. And the first thing that Eric Walker asks, the UFO, the inquirers, is he goes, "What do you know about the sixth sense?" And they say, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, "What do you know about ESP, extrasensory perception?" And then he says you're chasing windmills. Like, it's like literally your epistemic aperture is incapable of the disclosure. It's not like disclosure is like this like semantic information. It's not like this file that he can just give you. It's like you're literally like you're chasing your tail. You have no idea what you're dealing with. Like you're like almost like not even like able to comprehend this stuff. And that's always stuck with me because I do think it's like a you know, knowledge on this stuff is like a drip, but it comes from something higher. It's not coming necessarily from the government or whatever. Like if you're focused on that drip, good luck. It's gonna take like a long time. Yeah. You're gonna get like, you know, little bits and pieces or whatever along with everybody else over the next 10 years or whatever. But you know, I think developing your own epistemic aperture is like this really crucial thing in this whole story. And so yeah, I think that's like a very telling story that it's really about your own epistemics in some ways more so than. Yeah.
And then you have the people like Grush, though, who have access to things and find it.
Yes.
And, you know, what's the term? Epistemic aperture?
Yeah.
He develops his own epistemic aperture.
Well, he's a good example. He's got both. He's got, yeah. Sorry for my annoying.
I can tell you spend a lot of time around Eric Weinstein.
Yeah, exactly. I got it from him. Yeah. That whole universe is, you know, a lot of it's its own lexicon of words. Yeah. I think he's a good example of both. I think he has like, you know, really creative mind and like is really strong on like theory as well as like he clearly is like has a lot of actual hardcore info.
Thank you for watching the video, guys. If you haven't already subscribed, please smash that subscribe button and check out this clip's full podcast episode by clicking here or in the description below.